Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today into the world of sleep.
Who doesn't love a good night's sleep?
Right, but it can be so elusive. And we're going to be looking at the book Sleep Well.
By Dr. Meyer Krieg.
Yes, a Yale sleep expert. So we're going straight to the source, getting expert advice
Tried and true methods.
without having to read the whole book. So we're saving you some time.
Exactly.
So to start things off,
Okay.
Dr. Krieg, he really stresses, the importance of being a sleep detective, figuring out what's stopping you from sleeping before you can start working on it.
Yeah, and he starts with some health issues that can really wreak havoc on your sleep, and he dives right in with something that I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with, snoring.
Yeah, annoying, for sure. But is it always just annoying, or is it more serious?
Well, it could be a sign of sleep apnea, which is a much more serious condition.
Okay, so what is sleep apnea?
Basically, it's when your breathing repeatedly stops and starts while you're sleeping.
So what, like someone's snoring and then they stop breathing?
Yeah, you might hear those loud snores and then those kind of scary silent pauses
Yeah.
and then the sudden gasp for air.
Oh, okay. That is a little creepy. What causes it?
Well, obesity is a big risk factor, but it's not the only one.
Ah.
Age and gender also play a role, even enlarged tonsils in kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, if sleep apnea goes untreated, it can lead to high blood pressure, heart disease,
Really?
even an increased risk of stroke. So
Yeah.
it's definitely not something to ignore.
Wow. So the silent pauses, they're really not so peaceful after all. What can you do if you think you might have sleep apnea?
Well, the first thing is to see a doctor to get a proper diagnosis.
Right.
And then treatment depends on the individual and the severity of their condition. Sometimes lifestyle changes like losing weight can be really effective. There are also things like a CPAP machine, which helps keep your airways open while you're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Some people find relief with oral appliances. And in some cases, surgery might be recommended.
So a lot of different options. But it's important to get checked out, especially if you or your partner are habitual snorers.
For sure.
All right, well, let's move on to another sleep disruptor. This one might be a little less familiar. Restless leg syndrome, RLS.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever seen someone who just can't seem to stop jiggling their leg? They might not be doing it on purpose.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
That feeling of needing to move your legs all the time, especially when you're trying to relax or sleep, that's the hallmark of restless leg syndrome.
Huh, so it's an actual medical condition. I always thought it was just like a nervous habit.
It's a real thing,
Yeah.
and more common than you might think. About 2% of people in China experience it, and it's more common in women.
Is there a reason for that? What causes it?
Well, a lot of times it's linked to iron or vitamin deficiencies, something to consider, especially for women and vegetarians.
So if you find yourself doing the leg jiggle at night, could be time to get your iron levels checked.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Simple iron and B12 supplements can make a world of difference for some people. Regular exercise and relaxation techniques can also help manage the symptoms.
Good to know. So we've covered sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome. Are those the only things that can get in the way of a good night's sleep?
There are actually a few more. Dr. Krieg also points out some other health issues that can kind of sneakily sabotage your sleep.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well,
Yeah.
things like an enlarged prostate in men can lead to all those nighttime bathroom trips.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense.
And then you have acid reflux, waking up with that burning sensation in your chest. Even heart conditions like arrhythmia can cause palpitations that can disrupt your sleep.
So a lot of different potential culprits.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to see a doctor if you're having trouble sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Self-treating might just mask a bigger problem.
Yeah, good point. Get to the root of the problem.
Exactly. Well, once you rule out any medical causes, then you can really start diving into the behavioral and lifestyle changes that Dr. Krieg recommends.
Which brings us to what's considered the gold standard treatment for insomnia. CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia. CBTI.
Yeah. And it's definitely worth exploring why that's so effective and what that actually means for someone who's struggling to sleep. So CBTI, what makes it the gold standard?
Hey, what's so special about it?
Well, for one thing, it's very effective in treating insomnia.
Hmm.
And it's safe. No medication needed, which a lot of people appreciate.
Definitely.
And basically what it does is retrain your mind and your habits for better sleep.
So it's not just about, like, what you do before bed, but how you think about sleep.
Exactly. Gets to the root of those thoughts that are keeping you up at night and the behaviors that are sabotaging your sleep. So it's kind of like a two-pronged approach to tackling insomnia.
I like that two-pronged approach. Can you give me an example of what that looks like?
Sure. So let's say you're lying in bed, stressed out about not being able to sleep. CBTI helps you recognize those negative thought patterns like,
Hmm.
if I don't fall asleep right now, I'm going to be a wreck tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there. Staring at the ceiling, watching the clock tick by.
And then it teaches you to reframe those thoughts into something more realistic
Mm.
and helpful.
Okay, so how do you reframe that?
So instead of thinking, oh, I'm not going to sleep at all tonight, I'm going to be a zombie at work,
Right.
you might shift your thinking to, well, even if I don't sleep great tonight, I've had tough days before, I can get through it. And hey, maybe I'll sleep even better tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's a much better way to think about it. So it's really about like tackling those anxieties that are keeping you awake.
Exactly. And Dr. Krieg points out in the book that, missing a few hours of sleep isn't as bad as we think it is.
Oh, really?
Our brains are more resilient than we give them credit for.
That's good to know. Sometimes I feel like the fear of not sleeping is what keeps me up.
Right. So we talked about the mental side, the thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
but what about the behavioral changes?
Yeah, what does that look like? In practice.
So this is where something called stimulus control comes in.
Stimulus control.
Yeah. And this is all about reclaiming your bed as a sanctuary for sleep.
Okay.
We want to retrain your brain to see your bed and think sleep, not work, or scrolling on your phone, or worrying about your to-do list.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Definitely. But Dr. Krieg suggests if you're not asleep after about 20 or 30 minutes, get out of bed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And go do something relaxing in dim light, like reading
Mm-hmm.
or listening to calming music
Mm-hmm.
until you feel tired and then go back to bed.
Yeah.
The point is to avoid associating your bed with being awake.
So no more late night emails in bed.
Exactly. And another important part of stimulus control is consistency. Sticking to a regular sleep schedule, even on weekends,
Right.
helps regulate your body's natural sleep-wake cycle, your circadian rhythm.
Circadian rhythm, we hear that a lot. Can you just explain what that is for people who aren't familiar?
Sure, it's basically your internal clock. It regulates your sleep-wake cycle, along with other bodily processes, and it's influenced by light and darkness. So that's why having a consistent sleep schedule is so important.
It's all connected.
It is. But
Yeah.
let's say you've done all the relaxation techniques. You've created the perfect sleep environment.
Mm-hmm.
You're still staring at the ceiling.
Yep, been there.
What then?
What do you do?
Well, for those stubborn cases of insomnia, Dr. Krieg recommends something called sleep restriction.
Sleep restriction.
It might sound a little counterintuitive, but it's actually pretty effective.
Wait, so you're telling me to restrict my sleep?
It sounds crazy, right? But hear me out.
Okay. I'm listening.
The idea is to temporarily reduce the amount of time you spend in bed, to improve the quality of the sleep you get during that time. It's kind of like a way to reset your sleep drive.
Okay, so like, if I'm usually in bed for 8 hours, but I'm only really sleeping soundly for 5.
That's a good example. You would start by limiting yourself to those 5 hours,
Wow.
creating this really solid block of sleep. Now, you might feel a little sleep deprived at first, which actually helps to increase your sleep drive and make those 5 hours much more restful.
So you're kind of like tricking your body into sleeping more soundly by restricting the opportunity to sleep.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever. What happens next?
So once you're sleeping well during those 5 hours,
Mm-hmm.
consistently, you can start gradually adding back 15-30 minutes every week,
Okay.
slowly stretching out your sleep window until you reach your ideal sleep duration.
So it's not about permanently depriving yourself of sleep. It's about retraining your body to sleep more efficiently.
You got it.
I like that. Hacking your sleep efficiency.
Exactly. And of course, no CBT program would be complete without incorporating some relaxation techniques.
Yes.
These techniques are really designed to calm your mind and body and help you transition into sleep more easily.
I'm always up for trying new relaxation techniques. What does Dr. Krieg recommend?
One technique that he highlights is progressive muscle relaxation,
Oh, I've heard of that.
where you systematically tense and relax different muscle groups in your body.
It's like giving yourself a massage from the inside out.
Exactly. And another great one is pace breathing. There's a simple technique called the 4-4-4 technique.
Car 4.
You inhale slowly for a count of 4, hold your breath for 4, and then exhale slowly for 4.
Okay.
It's amazing how just doing that for a few minutes can really calm your mind and body down.
So simple. I like it. What else?
He also recommends guided imagery, which is where you create this peaceful image in your mind. It could be the beach, a forest, Anywhere that evokes a sense of calm.
Oh, I love doing that. It's like a little mental vacation.
Yeah, exactly. And the key is to really engage all of your senses.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see? What do you hear? Smell? Feel? It really helps to transport you away from those worries and anxieties into a more relaxed state.
So we've talked a lot about CBTI. It's really a multifaceted approach to treating insomnia. But what about people whose sleep is disrupted because of their lifestyles?
That's a great point. We can't talk about sleep without considering the different demands and challenges of different lifestyles. And luckily, Dr. Krieg offers some tailored strategies for specific groups.
Okay, so like, what does he say for people who are dealing with jet lag
Yeah.
or working the night shift?
Yeah, those are definitely two big ones. Let's start with shift workers. I mean, working those late nights or early mornings, it can really mess with your body clock.
Yeah, definitely. So what can they do to protect their sleep and their health?
Well, Dr. Krieg, he's a big fan of strategic napping. Even just a quick 10, 15-minute nap can make a huge difference for shift workers in terms of alertness and, just being able to think clearly.
Yeah, those power naps can be lifesavers sometimes.
For sure. And he also talks about the importance of light exposure. If you're working nights and you're heading home as the sun's coming up, that bright morning light, it can really disrupt your circadian rhythm.
So what, like wear sunglasses on your way home?
That's a good idea. Anything you can do to create a dark and quiet sleep environment during the day is going to help.
Makes sense. Okay, well, let's talk about another group, frequent travelers. Jet lag is the worst.
It's brutal, can really wipe you out. But the good news is Dr. Krieg offers some strategies for minimizing the effects of jet lag. And he breaks it down by whether you're traveling east or west.
Because it's different, right?
It is. When you travel east, you're basically shortening your day, which is harder to adjust to. So his advice is adjust your watch and your routine to the new time zone immediately, even before you get off the plane.
So just pretend like you're already there.
Exactly. Start eating and sleeping according to the new time zone. And he even suggests maybe taking a small dose of melatonin to help shift your body clock.
Okay, so what about westward travel?
Westward travel is a little different. You're basically lengthening your day, which is usually a bit easier to adjust to. So in that case, the goal is to try and stay awake until a reasonable bedtime in the new location.
So fight that urge to crash as soon as you get there.
Exactly. And once you get there,
get
as much daylight as possible, especially in the morning.
Okay, makes sense. Light is so powerful.
It is.
All right, let's talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, women and sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Because hormones, right, throughout a woman's life, they can really affect how well you sleep.
Big time. And Dr. Krieg dedicates a whole section of his book to this, starting with pregnancy and postpartum.
Which are, sleepless times.
For sure. So, first of all, he stresses how important it is to find a comfortable sleep position.
Yeah.
And during pregnancy, he recommends sleeping on your left side.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it helps to improve blood flow to the baby and reduces pressure on certain organs.
Oh, wow.
But once the baby arrives, it's really all about just maximizing those precious moments of sleep, even if it means taking short naps during the day.
Catching those Z's whenever you can.
Exactly. And he talks about how important it is for partners and family and friends to really step up and support new moms.
Yeah.
And make sure they're getting enough rest.
So true, especially if you're breastfeeding. I mean,
it's exhausting.
Yeah. All right, well, what about menopause?
Yeah, that's another time when sleep can be really disrupted. Those hot flashes and night sweats.
They can be brutal.
Yeah, they can really mess with your sleep. So Dr. Krieg talks about hormone replacement therapy as a potential option for managing those symptoms. But, of course, that's a conversation to have with your doctor.
Absolutely. So what if you don't want to do HRT or you want to try other things first? What can you do?
Well, he recommends some basic lifestyle changes, like avoiding caffeine and spicy foods before bed, keeping your bedroom cool and well ventilated, and practicing those relaxation techniques we talked about earlier.
Great advice. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today talking about Dr. Krieg's book.
We have.
Sleep well, and it's clear that, there's no magic bullet when it comes to sleep.
Nope.
But there are definitely things that can help if you're struggling.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the biggest takeaway for me is that improving your sleep is a journey. It's not a destination.
So true.
It's about finding what works for you and making gradual, sustainable changes to your sleep habits.
Well said. And sometimes those small changes can lead to big improvements.
They really can.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Think about it. What one thing that we talked about today are you going to try this week? to get a better night's sleep. Sweet dreams.